Legacy Motor Club making some moves. The Wood Brothers reveal a special scheme for the Clash, and Cory LaJoie announced several plans. So let's get into it. Coming up next. What's going on, everybody? Hope you're doing good today. Well, I was going to start off with the Legacy thing, but literally as I was making this, I saw where NASCAR is not going to change the playoff format for 2025. This from Bob Pockrass. NASCAR's John Probst says it won't make any changes to the playoff format in 2025. Then responding to that above, he says NASCAR will have a working group in 2025 to take a look at the playoff format for 2026. They don't want to make small changes every year, so this group will take a holistic view of the format. So a few things kind of jump out right there. A lot of fans after last season were not happy with the format of the playoffs. They didn't necessarily want the playoffs to go away. Of course, there will always be people that want the full season points, myself included. I think full season points would be great. However, it's not going to happen with the current way that the TV contracts are structured. So that being said, we're kind of stuck at this point with a playoff system. So the playoff system that we are stuck with, a lot of fans, I would say at this point, probably the vast majority of fans, at least wanted some tweaks to the current format, the current playoff system that is in place to determine the championship. And the news coming that it's not going to be overhauled or even tweaked for 2025. They're going to wait until 2026 to do something. If they do anything at all, has been met with a lot of consternation. People are just not happy about it, put it that way. And NASCAR not making any changes, there could be several reasons for that. The first reason being the way the TV contracts and all that stuff went, they probably did not have enough time to change it in the offseason being relatively short to change everything for next season. But giving them a whole year, they could change things and get the TV partners on board and how they're going to dice things up if they change the playoffs in 2026, which I do think that they will. However, it is NASCAR, and there's always a differing opinion. There's a lot of people thinking, or not a lot of people, but I have seen some people throw it out there that NASCAR is just waiting and hoping last year's disaster of a playoff, in a lot of people's opinions, will just blow over and people will forget about it. That way in 2026, they don't have to do anything. So there is an opposing view, but me personally, I think that they will change it for 2026. I just don't think that they had enough time to completely overhaul it and change it for 2025, and that's why 2025, they're just going to let it roll like it has been rolling the previous seasons. But I do expect we will get a change in 2026. All right, now on to Legacy. As part of this strategic partnership, Nighthead will acquire a minority stake in Legacy Motor Club. After 12 years of owning and operating the impressively successful GMS racing team, which competed in the NASCAR Truck and Xfinity Series, Gallagher will take a step back from day-to-day and assume an ambassador role with Legacy Motor Club. GMS Racing won 5 championships across the NASCAR Truck Series and ARC Menard Series. The team won 71 races in total and 26 pole positions with many talented drivers. In 2021, Gallagher acquired Richard Petty Motorsports and Petty GMS Racing was formed. The team won the Southern 500 at Darlington Raceway with Eric Jones in 2022 before striking a deal with Johnson and expanding to a 2-car team for the 2023 NASCAR Cup Series season. The team continues to tout the iconic number 43 made famous by club ambassador Richard Petty the King, who recently celebrated 75 years in racing. That via Legacy Motor Club and a press release. So a few things to break down there. First off, Maury Gallagher, who formerly was basically the majority owner, had the controlling interest or whatever, he is now relegated to an ambassador role. I don't know if he even has a part of the company because, part of the Richard Petty deal, when he got bought out, he became an ambassador. So I don't know if Maury Gallagher has a part of the company, but we do know from that quote that Jimmie Johnson is now the majority owner. Because as you saw there, Nighthead Capital, they are taking a minority stake. So now Jimmie Johnson is the overall owner. We don't know if Maury Gallagher has a piece of it or not, but we know going forward that Jimmie Johnson will be the head of the organization. And since he's bought in 2023, things have not gone well. 28th and 34th last season, respectively, for Eric Jones and John Hunter Nemechek, with one top 5 between both drivers for the entire season. So that was bad. And then if you go look back at 2023, you can almost throw that season out. So you can almost, if you really wanted to, not count it because they weren't really a factory-based team or a factory-backed team back then. But pretty similar stats, one top 5. So even when they weren't a factory-backed team, they were a factory-backed team last year. The year before, pretty much identical stats. So since Jimmie Johnson has taken over, they have not had a great deal of success, especially when you compare it to the previous season when he wasn't an owner in 2022, especially if you look at 2022 when it was just petty GMS, and there Erik Jones got 1 win and 3 top 5s, finished 18th in points. 29th in points was Ty Dillon, but he didn't have any top 5s, and of course no wins. So they had a significantly better 2022. So ever since Jimmie Johnson has sort of been making moves and taken over, things have not gone their way. Now, there are several reasons for this as well. During the Maury Gallagher era, they were trying to win now. They were putting tons of money into it, trying to win immediately, whereas Jimmie Johnson's approach has been a little bit different, and he wants to take a different route to get to the wins. Whereas Jimmie Johnson wants to lay a strong foundation and slowly build their way up, a la a Front Row Motorsports or something like that. So he's trying to get the right people in place, and eventually the wins will start coming. Whereas instead of spending all this money on other people's information where they were getting those wins with petty GMS, they were buying that, basically buying that information from other teams, and those were the races that they would run well. Jimmie Johnson is trying to build that information in-house, get as much information as possible in-house without buying it from, Joe Gibbs Racing, 2311, or somebody like that. So it's a different approach. Both of them can work, but so far, Jimmie Johnson's approach is just going to be a slow roll to the top, and he's been very vocal about this, that this is the way that he's going to go about doing things. So it's one of those, if you're familiar with basketball, the Philadelphia 76ers, you got to believe in the process. So if you're a Legacy Motor Club fan, you got to believe in the process. If you're an Erik Jones fan, as painful as it is, you got to believe in the process. John Hunter Nemechek, so on and so forth. Jumping back to the new minority owner, Nighthead Capital Management, LLC. Top holdings are Wheels Up Experience, Hertz Global Holdings, and they have all these other things down here as well. That from Fintel IO, but that is not all they own, because they also own several other sports entities, including Jota Racing and Birmingham City FC. Birmingham City FC. Yeah, there you go. I got that one right. So they are interested in sports assets. It's just a capital company. They buy into things. They try to raise the value in it and, stuff like that. It's one of those really boring companies. Not going to get into explaining that, but that is now the minority ownership stake, just like Roush Fenway Keselowski has their minority owner stake over there. So just getting really interesting how all these companies are buying into the sport. It kind of shows the strength that they see potentially for NASCAR to grow and be bigger in the future, which is good overall if you're a team owner and you own a charter, because in theory, those charters will get more and more expensive as these capital companies look into them and think that they're going to have more and more value. Another company that sees value in NASCAR is Amazon Prime, who is going to be streaming some races next season, and they announced 2 more members of the Prime lineup. Danielle Trotta and Cory LaJoie will be joining the Amazon team as a host and an analyst. They're going to both be on a pre-race show during the Amazon portion of the season, and they will also be on a post-race show. So good for them. But that was not the only news that Cory LaJoie in particular had to announce, because he is kind of starting his own team with Rick Ware Racing. Veteran racer Cory LaJoie announced a multi-faceted NASCAR effort in 2025 that will see the 33-year-old return to the NASCAR Cup Series and appear on Prime Video NASCAR broadcasts as an analyst. LaJoie will drive the number 01 Ford Mustang Dark Horse for Rick Ware Racing in a limited schedule, beginning with the season opening Daytona 500. The number 01 aligns with LaJoie's desire to create a Stacking Pennies performance brand, the genesis of which began 4 years ago with his Stacking Pennies podcast, built on the notion that small victories over time lead to success. Stacking Pennies is now one of the most popular NASCAR broadcasts. And by broadcasts, I mean podcasts, because I read that wrong. But it is what it is. So it's really cool that he's starting his own brand, and with that, he's going to incorporate into that his racing career. I'm all for somebody starting their own thing, doing their own thing, and for as much grief as he catches on social media, the fact that he won't give up and he's going to continue to chase his NASCAR Cup Series dreams is actually very, very admirable in my opinion. So good on Cory LaJoie for keeping it going. But he is going to have some sponsorship help, and he is going to have some help from Rick Ware himself. So let's take a look at that. Duramax and Take 5 Oil Change will be the primary partners for LaJoie at Daytona, where small victories will be needed to ensure a place in the 67th Daytona 500 as an open entry. The number 01 Duramax Take 5 Oil Change Ford Mustang does not have a guaranteed starting spot. LaJoie's Daytona 500 drive begins February 12th with time trials and continues February 13th with the dual twin 150-mile qualifying races that sets the field for the Daytona 500. If LaJoie is one of the 2 fastest open drivers in time trials or scores the highest finish among the open drivers in the respective duel, his place in the Great American Race will be secured. So there you go. Take 5 oil change and Duramax are going to be on there for the Daytona 500 effort, and he is going to have to race his way in there, as you saw in that quote. So nothing guaranteed, and that's for the brand he's trying to build. That's absolutely actually perfect here. He's going to have to go out there and earn it. He's going to have to go out there and either qualify on time or qualify, in the actual heat race. So that's going to be for the brand he's building. I think that's going to be a good thing, and it's going to be super interesting to see how it all plays out. Cory went on to say in that Rick Ware Racing press release, Rick Ware is someone who makes things happen. He's a great guy who's been a generous friend in helping me get this vision of stacking Penny's performance off the ground. LaJoie said he's allowed me to put the number 01 on his Ford Mustang. Building off the brand fans have related to, supported, and cheered for over the past several years. I'm proud of what we've accomplished and excited for what's ahead, beginning at Daytona with Duramax and Take 5 oil change. So there you have it. The cars he's using will be Rick Ware Racing cars. He's just going to put the 01 on it for branding purposes. So shout out to Rick Ware for taking, just taking an interest in it and helping out Cory LaJoie continue his NASCAR Cup Series career in a manner that I think befits Cory LaJoie and what he's trying to accomplish. So cool story, cool deal. Hope everything works out for him. But it's Daytona. It's going to be a tough one. So the good thing about it is there's consequences to the qualifying. The bad thing about it is all these are great stories, but some of these guys are going to have to go home, and that is what makes Daytona Daytona. I wish nobody was locked in for Daytona. I wish it was like a standalone race by itself where everybody had to race their way in. Because, man, that's when the heat races and the qualifying would actually matter. But it is what it is. Yeah. This from Fox Sports Films and NASCAR Studios announced the premieres of 2 compelling new original documentaries making the start of the 2025 NASCAR season. The Madhouse, NASCAR's return to Bowman Gray Stadium, narrated by Fox Sports Emmy Award-winning storyteller Tom Rinaldi, debuts on Monday, January 27th. The film explores the rich and rollicking history of the venue while weaving a narrative that focuses on preparations for the clash at Bowman Gray, featuring exclusive interviews with NASCAR's Jim France, Ben Kennedy, plus other notable racing figures such as Leonard Wood and Danny Chocolate Myers, along with Bowman Gray stalwarts Burt Myers, Jason Myers, and Tim Brown. The documentary tells a story that intersects 2 unique worlds, the biggest motorsport series in North America, and the grassroots charm of small-town America at Bowman Gray Stadium. So there you go. I'm pretty stoked for that one. It actually comes out tonight, so check it out. Hopefully this video comes out before that. The other video that they're making is going to come out on February 13th, So Damn Close, Atlanta 2024, immediately following the duel at Daytona, focusing on the closest 3-way finish in NASCAR history between Daniel Suarez, Ryan Blaney, and Kyle Busch in last year's and Better Health 400. The documentary will feature all 3 drivers getting together to revisit the dramatic race, plus separate shoots with their crew chiefs and spotters. The film provides candid exchanges and a forensic breakdown of the most pivotal moments of the race, revealing the untold stories on and off the track leading up to the split-second decisions that shaped the historic outcome. Also pretty stoked for that one because usually Fox does breakdowns like this. I've seen them do it with football and things like that. The fact that they're doing it now for a big NASCAR event that happened, one of the closest races, the closest race finish in history between those 3 drivers, that's pretty cool. That's going to be really, really neat to see how they do it because they always do a pretty good job in my opinion. So I'm sure that will be a really good one too. Interesting topic that they picked. Of all the topics they could pick, they picked that one. So going to be really interesting to see which direction they go with it and how it all plays out. Speaking of Bowman Gray, back to our roots, the Wood brothers running a throwback to some of their success that they've had previously at Bowman Gray, as you see with this car here that Josh Berry will drive. Pumped for our season opener to be a tribute to team founder Glenn Wood and his 37 Ford backseater. It's called that because mechanic brainiac Leonard Wood moved the engine so far, Pa had to sit in the backseat to drive. Wood Brothers continuing to prove that it doesn't have to be this most intricate design to be an amazing paint scheme. Pretty basic paint scheme there, but it's a really cool paint scheme because of the story behind it, the bright colors, and the history of it. So really cool deal. Excited to see that one roll out there on Bowman Gray for the Clash. And to wrap things up, Front Row Motorsports has announced their Truck Series driver and crew chief lineups. The number 34 team is going to be Lane Riggs with his crew chief Dylan Capello. And the 38 team will be featuring Chandler Smith and crew chief John Leonard in the 38. So Lane Riggs to the 34, Chandler Smith to the 38. And me, well, I'm going to the house because that's all I got for you on this one. If you made it this far, I would love to have your subscription. If not, I'll just keep making these things. If you've got a question, comment, or anything like that, leave it down below. I try to get to as many of them as I can. And other than that, thanks for your time. Peace.